Do you get tired and then feel bad for being tired? Yes. Do you feel like you need to work really hard all the time just to feel like a valid human being? Yes. Do you see other people being successful and feel bad that you didn't work hard enough to get what they have? Yes. If you said yes to any 3 of these questions, you, my friend, are suffering from a neoliberal regime. What's that? Stay tuned to find out what the heck I'm talking about and what you can do to help fight against that. Yay!
Or $3.99 chat about neoliberalism coming from Aziza near you.
Welcome, 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 Black. Welcome, Black. Welcome back. Hello. How y'all doing? I hope everyone's doing good. I'm really excited to get into this topic of neoliberalism, what it is, and I think it's something that Black people need to be very much aware of. Marginalized communities need to definitely be very aware of this. But I want to say I learned a little bit about neoliberalism. Last quarter, I took a class on like world arts and culture, and learning about neoliberalism, like I think I would always hear like, oh, a neoliberal regime or like neoliberal whatever, but I would be like, yeah. I wouldn't really know what it meant, like what it was. So learning about it, I think really like opened my eyes, and I kind of saw what people were talking about, and I kind of wanted to be able to share that with you. It's really important to me, and the way I'm going to speak about it was really life-changing for me, just because I do feel like I'm someone who works very hard, and I believe in hard work and, you know, various things like that, but I feel like I had to really kind of understand what me working hard in my Black body, what that kind of really means and looks like, and not to make sure I'm getting like too much taken advantage of when it comes to the system and working hard, and Black folks working really hard in life just in general. So that's kind of why I want to do it. Once you kind of finish the video, I feel like you'll understand like why this, in my opinion, kind of connects to something that Black people need to really understand and be like aware of for our life and our safety. Now, before I really get into the topic, I do want to preface this video with the fact that neoliberalism is a political ideology, political theory, and it doesn't necessarily have to do with whether you are a liberal, a conservative, various things like that. You could be a liberal and hate neoliberalism. You can be a conservative and love neoliberalism. It's kind of just like a political ideology that I feel like people have kind of adapted, and some would argue that, you know, kind of just exists like in terms of how we look at success and, you know, who should be able to, you know, have access to free markets and trade. So I'm really excited to get into the video. Please go ahead, get comfortable, lay back, you know, do whatever you gotta do. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel, and hit the bell icon to be notified when I post. I post every other Sunday, so stay tuned for that. Thank you so much, and without further ado, here we go. So what is neoliberalism? So I will be kind of speaking on neoliberalism in the context of David Harvey's book, A Brief History of Neoliberalism. So as I stated earlier in the video, neoliberalism is a theoretical economic-based political ideology. And it proposes that the advancement of human beings can be achieved by liberating individual entrepreneurial freedoms and skills. In theory, maybe you're like, okay, if I'm good, then I'm good. It's as simple as that. But keep listening though. This is done by consenting to a framework that is very individual based, that is characterized by private property ownership, free trade, and free markets. Now, with this specific individual autonomy, the state is rendered laissez-faire essentially, which is like kind of hands-off, throwback to high school. learn that in like a 10th grade US history. So laissez-faire, like the government is essentially hands-off in terms of specific roles in its ability to provide for the citizens. So the government would essentially uphold the integrity of like money, military, defense, police, and legal structures required to secure private property rights. So all in all, the point of neoliberalism is to put everyone's individual success or failure on their own shoulders, and the government would have less interference and withdraw from the responsibilities of providing for its citizens. So I know I did like a video about like, should we abolish police? And it was actually about restorative and transformative justices and justice practices, and thinking about like, okay, well, if we did abolish police and, have less government, that's not necessarily the same as this. So with neoliberalism, it's more of like the resources that the government gives to people, like food stamps, money, or, providing housing or whatever, that under the neoliberal regime, that would be taken away, because the ideal is like, well, you're gonna succeed on your own either way, so I'm just gonna, see what you do out here in this racist world, all of these things, and we'll see what happens. This is dangerous for all marginalized communities. This is specifically dangerous for Black people, and that's why I wanted to come to y'all with this video. I'm gonna get into the historical context, but of course, throughout the video, I will go more into detail of like why and how this is especially bad for Black people and very dangerous, and a very dangerous ideal. So when thinking about the historical context, we have to think about the 80s and the shifting political climate at the time. So Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher were actually like pretty big components of wanting neoliberalism, wanting the shift towards the individual and a higher class power, more strength in the class power in around the 80s. So obviously when we say Reagan, we need to think about Reaganomics, because this is kind of like an aside of that. So you probably learned about this in your history classes in high school, but real quick, Reaganomics, or people would describe it as the trickle-down economics, is essentially like, imagine a tree, like a legit tree, and imagine someone watering the top of the tree and being like, okay, well, as long as we give the resources to the people at the top, they'll trickle down to, the people at the bottom, the roots, all these things like this. Now, of course, for anyone who's ever watered a tree or plant, this does not work. This does not necessarily work. And I mean, it doesn't work. I think in terms of watering plants, it's definitely good to water the soil, but in terms of economics, it really doesn't work, because as we can probably think, giving money to the rich, they're not gonna give money to the people at the bottom, the poor. They're gonna be like, oh great, bet, got more from the government. I'm here for the government. They're giving me more money. And now that I own all these businesses, I'm going to make everything more expensive because I have more money to be able to do so. Just as an example. All in all, the fact is that giving money to the rich will not trickle down to the poor. That's just, it doesn't work. It's not a thing. It shouldn't be a thing, but it was essentially a way to keep the rich richer. And that's essentially what Reaganomics, trickle-down economics does. It keeps the rich richer and keeps the poor poorer. This is crucial to bring up, because this is the context to how neoliberalism kind of came about and the structures that were at place as it was kind of coming into creation. The focus of neoliberalism being on free trade, free markets, private property means that now there's a project to restore class power. So now someone who is upper class not only has more money, but now they have more access and ability to maneuver the free markets and the free trade and own property, which at the time was seen as a success in the 80s, and I would argue probably still now. If you own property, you're pretty successful. Well, in my eyes, not everyone's eyes, of course. And under this new world order, finance, money is now the source of power. Now, like I've said, this is great for the upper class, but if you're middle and lower class, this is terrible, because this leads to job insecurity and the erasure of essentially a safety net for middle class folks and lower class folks. And this will only cause people to lose more money if you're not in the upper class, if you're not rich. And with this, under this regime as well, there was also a shift in workplace culture. So before, one is meant to kind of clock in at their job, work, as hard as they can. If they don't work that hard, it's like, okay, at the end of the day though, I know that the job needs me. So even if I don't work super hard, I know I have just job security. I know I can clock in and I know I'm good. Under this new rule though, under this neoliberalism regime, now it's kind of like, okay, now you have to excel to keep your job. So it's not like you can just come in and be like, okay, I'm trying my best. Now it's like, no, I have to do my best. I have to excel or else I'm out of a job. And all in all, Harvey explains that people who have more money in this regime will just continue to grow and make more money. And citizens who are already disadvantaged will just only be able to lose more money. What happens in terms of thinking about the historical context of this, when, neoliberalism was kind of being thought about and kind of being put into practice in the 80s, rich people just continuing to become rich, poor people or middle class folks will just continue to lose money, and the jobs will become harder, which means people will be more tired. And if you don't succeed, if you don't make a lot of money, it's your fault. It's because you didn't work hard enough. Whereas before it was, well, I know I have a job, I know I can do my best, whatever. Whereas now it's like, well, you weren't coming in every single day, doing the top tier, and that's why you got fired, and putting the onus on, you not being a good enough worker. So that's some of the historical context around like what was happening kind of in the 80s and what political ideas and systems and founding people influenced neoliberalism. So now that we know what neoliberalism is, we know about the history, let's get into what the problem of this is. If you haven't been able to feel what, how this could be a problem, I'm about to really get into it. Today, neoliberalism has manifested as a means to inform people subconsciously that if you do not succeed, it is your fault. Now in society, and I would really argue, especially since COVID and people having to be in quarantine, businesses failing, but certain businesses, certain really intense high businesses succeeding, now there is a constant pressure to consistently work, to work really, really hard as you possibly can in order to be a valuable contribution to society. That's deep. That's really deep because that is not how it should be. That is a neoliberal regime, and that is not how it has always been, and that's not how I think it should be at all. No longer now is a citizen a part of a large support system constructed through social relations, communities, labor unions, and family structures. And now it's very individual based. So no longer is it community based, let's help each other out. It's very like, no, individual, you do you, I do me, and we'll see who sinks or swims. Now this is the kicker and why this is on my channel. Neoliberalism is a project of white supremacy. It is. This is terrible for Black people. This is terrible for marginalized communities. It's a gross manifestation of a mix between individualism and the American dream. There's a rhetoric with the American dream, just pull yourself up from the bootstraps. We all have the same opportunities. We all have the same, we know that's not true. What if you don't have boots? I mean, following with the, allegory, with the analogy, what if you don't have boots? What if you don't have straps? What if you don't have able hands to even pull yourself up? Like, Black people, we know, have to deal with a lot of systems at play, school, prison pipeline, not enough access to education, not a lot of access to money, no generational wealth, no nepotism. I could go on all day. Like, it's not just like if a Black person doesn't succeed, it's wholeheartedly on their shoulders. That's not how it is. And under neoliberalism, under this regime, one is now blamed for them not being able to succeed. And the thing is, we live in a society and, we should be able to look to the government that has resources that hopefully can be divided up amongst people that would help folks, for example, following the bootstraps analogy, who don't have boots, who don't have straps, to be like, okay, well, here's some straps. Under a neoliberal regime, it'd be like, well, the government is laissez-faire again. It's very like, well, help yourself. Sorry, we're not going to help you. We're just going to make sure that these private property rights are being upheld, and that we have enough resources for them, for people who are able to even have private property and afford that. So what I noticed when you look at stereotypes like of Black people are stereotyped for being lazy, and I believe that this is also of course this is a project of white supremacy, but it is under the neoliberal regime. Essentially, Black people are oftentimes blamed for, well, why aren't you the head of the company? Well, I just worked really hard and I just used my daddy's money correctly and I got to be president. And it's like, why couldn't you do that? Black folks, Latinx folks are stereotyped to be lazy, dangerous, harmful, various things like this. And Oftentimes diverse communities are looked at in comparison to white folks and being like, well, why can't y'all just get your stuff together? Like, we got our stuff together. And it's like, well, y'all had a bunch of stuff already equity wise in order for y'all to get your stuff together. Like, we're just trying to live. Like, we're just trying to be here and just like be able to look in the mirror and smile every day. And the issue with neoliberalism is that it doesn't take into account things that help white people live a better life in terms of, like I've stated, generational wealth, nepotism, proper preparation for schooling, finances, and just the privilege of being white, of a white person going into a job and more than likely being hired versus a black woman or something like that. And essentially, neoliberalism aids in the opportunity to blame someone for not being farther in life. And unfortunately, neoliberalism is here. Like, it's breathing, it's here. I feel like I just noticed that there's a lot of shame with people who are successful, whether it's on social media or just, talking where it's just like, well, I worked really hard to get where I am. Like, that's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. You just got to work really, really hard and you'll be good. I think that sometimes when people get successful, it's just because they met someone at the right time. They went to the right meeting. They went to the right school. They knew the right person. And nothing, not to take away from anyone's success, but all that to say, like, I think a lot of times it's put on people to be like, well, you just got to work a little bit harder. Just like got to work a little bit harder, and you're gonna keep working and they're gonna be burned out. I wanted to bring this to your attention because I think it's really important to think about and thinking about how we kind of help to counteract this. And I'm going to get in my tips to where I'm going to talk specifically how we can do this. I'm about to give you some tips to help you really make sure you're fighting against this neoliberal ideal. So the first tip number 1, rest. Rest, rest, rest. Radical rest is important. Sleep, take a break, relax. Don't explain to anyone what you're doing. Relax. Take a break. It is okay. It is okay to be tired. Life is tiring. It is okay to not have a plan for what you want to do next. I know about that. It's okay. And I think that's something that I kind of learned in my self journey before even learning about neoliberalism, but also just quarantine and being inside. Like, at the end of the day, at the bare minimum of everything else is gone, at the end of the day, I'm a human being. Like, I'm a person, and my only responsibility as a human being is to keep breathing and living until, the good Lord takes me home. But for the most part, like, all I really have to do, somebody told me a long time ago, all you really need to do is be black and die. Like, that's really, all the extra stuff is just blessings and amazing, opportunities. But it's like, you really just want to be able to be comfortable with yourself at the end of the day. And a lot of times that takes you just being really still and chilling and quiet with yourself and figuring out what you like to do outside of work, outside of like, I'm a good worker. Of course you're a good worker. That's great. I'm a good worker. But it's like, okay, well, what am I like? Just in my own, silence. We are conditioned and told, especially black people, I think, and especially women, that the more we work and the more we're able to do, the more valuable we are in a society. And I would really argue that I think society rewards that. Like, I feel like people praise these people who just work so hard and are so successful, and it's like, wow, look at what they have. Like, I really want that. And it's just like, okay, maybe you want, to be able to influence people or whatever, but it's just like, at the end of the day, they worked hard, but there's a lot of people who work hard. Now, all this to say, I'm not saying don't work hard. Like, I'm going to still work hard at the end of the day, like in terms of my life and what I want. And I think you should if you want to work hard, I think that's good at whatever you do. I think that's great. But the key is, don't let you being able to work hard and your ability to work hard mean that you're a better person. You're a good person or a bad person. Don't equate the two. And don't equate how good your life is going just because you're able to work really hard. And don't let you being able to work hard dictate what you deserve in your life. If you do nothing all day, you deserve great things too. If you work yourself to the bone Monday through Sunday, just every day, that doesn't mean that you deserve more than someone who doesn't do anything all day. And if you do believe this, and if you do feel this, then I just want to have you check a little bit within that, because you might be already falling into some neoliberal regimes, unfortunately. So prioritize rest. Ultimately, tip number 1, prioritize rest. It is okay to be tired. It is okay to rest. Tip number 2, stop pushing the narrative. Stop pushing the cycle. Stop promoting the idea that if you work hard, you're a better person. At the end of the day, you can ask successful people, even successful black people, you can ask some successful black people what they did. And yeah, they're gonna say, I worked hard. But you know what they're also gonna say? They're also gonna say, I just happened to meet the right person at the right time. I just happened to know the right person. I happen to have this privilege where I'm lighter and more people favored me when it came to, being on TV. I was able to get this loan that whatever. And of course, what I'm not doing is I'm not discrediting anyone's success. I'm not discrediting any black person's success. But I'm literally just saying that, just because someone's successful doesn't necessarily mean that they worked astronomically harder than everyone else, because your life situations dictate what you're gonna do at the end of the day. If you're a single parent and you have kids to take care of, and you are working at a job and you have a roof over your head, let me tell you something, you're working pretty hard. And if you're black on top of all that, you're working very, very hard. You might even be working harder than these hedge fund millionaires, and you may have worked harder than them to get to the place where you can just thrive. Trust me, you're working pretty hard. If you're a black college student and you're like one of the only few on your campus, or not, and you're just trying to manage having a job, being a student, paying bills, if you're living in an apartment or whatever circumstance, you're working very, very hard. You're waking up and you're working hard, I promise you. So all that to say, just because somebody works really hard and was able to succeed doesn't mean that they're better than you in any kind of way. I'm telling y'all, don't believe the hype. And I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret that, I really want you to stay hyped to. The powers that be, Uncle Sam, the person behind the curtain, whatever, they want your black body, they want you as a black person to work very hard. You know why? Because when you're working hard, you're not keeping your mental health in check. When you're working hard, you're not maintaining your relationships. You're not checking in on your partner. You're not checking in on your friends. You're not letting them check in on you. You're not calling your parents. You're not making sure you see your family, the people who you hold dear in your life. You're not making sure that you are loved and supported by people who want to support you. You're not resting. That's what they want. They're sitting back like, oh yeah, bet. No, keep working, keep chasing this little cash cow, please. Keep going. That's what we want. And I'm telling y'all, that's why another reason why you got to really fight the system internally and be able to say, you know what? I'm going to rest. I'm going to relax. I'm going to talk to my friend. I'm going to hang out. I'm going to turn up. I'm going to do fun stuff, as well as working hard if that's what you want to do. And the last part of this tip, at the end of the day, some people can get successful because they had certain privileges, and that's not something you can outwork. You can't outwork the fact that a white person got hired over a black person. You can work 10 times as hard. You can be the most qualified person and you still might not get chosen. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't try. Personally, I think, still try, put yourself out there, but I'm just saying that unfortunately, the way privileges work, it's not fair. It's not fair, but you working really hard isn't necessarily going to make, the system correct. And I would just say, work hard so you can feel proud of it. Work hard so you can take your vacations with your family and spend time with your friends and turn up the way that you want to. And my last tip number 3, balance. And this is something I struggle with, and I think a lot of people struggle with, and I feel like will just be a long time journey, but it's okay because there's beauty in the journey. But balance. Work hard, play hard. Work hard because you want to. Work hard maybe because you're going to a certain goal. But I just say, just make sure that as much as you're working hard, you're resting. You're taking time for yourself. You're doing things that you enjoy doing. because, you know, success is always going to be there. Like, you can get successful at 80 years old. Like, you know, but what you want to make sure is that you had a fun time, that you have a fruitful life where you feel good about it. There's people who worked and isolated everyone else, and when they finally got to be that doctor, when they finally got to be that whatever, they looked around and they had no one, because they were just so cutthroat and just so, no, don't have time for anyone else, anything else. I'm just gonna work and that's it. And I bet you they wish that they would have chilled a bit. Like, they probably wish they would have relaxed and not fallen into that neoliberal regime. Black people, we need to rest. Life is hard, life is stressful, and unfortunately, life is not necessarily going to get any better unless maybe it does, maybe it will. Of course, you know, life looks different from our, you know, grandparents' lives back in the 50s and things like that. But either way, it's just still hard out here. So it's just really important that we take time to rest. Marginalized communities take time to rest. And lastly, I want to challenge you, not this kind of challenge, you know, not a little TikTok challenge, but a legit challenge. Sometime in this week, this day you're watching, I want to challenge you to take a break. But here's the kicker. Don't explain to yourself why you're taking the break. Don't explain it. Don't justify it. Don't be like, well, I worked through this. Just take the break. Whatever that looks like to you. Whatever that looks like to you, take the break. I promise you. There, I saw a tweet. It was like, take your vacations. These jobs don't care about you. And at the end of the day, I'm sorry, they really don't. They care about productivity and getting it done. And I'm sorry to say, there's another you. If you get fired, they can replace. Not to say you should, you know, sabotage your job. You know, don't do that. But I'm just saying, prioritize yourself. Take breaks. Take a break sometime this week, whether it's, you know, a day off or just a 5-minute break from studying, whatever. Take a break. Don't explain it to anyone else. If other people see you taking a break or doing a little vacay or doing a little whatever, don't tell them why. Just do it and just let it be. All right, so that's the challenge for y'all. Tell me in the comments if you were able to do this challenge, how it was looking. Let me know in the comments how you feel about working hard, about resting, neoliberalism, anything I talked about. Thank you so much for tuning in. I was really excited to get into this video, and I think it's really important for all of us to definitely be aware of. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Hit the bell icon to be notified when I post. I post every other Sunday. And please, please, please don't forget to rest your beautiful body. Thank you so much, and I will see you soon.